What is up, guys? My name is Chase, and let's talk about the Nintendo Switch 2.
If that is your real name.
So rumors have been ramping up recently about Nintendo's next generation console, which a lot of people are calling the Switch 2. And all of these rumors and speculation got me thinking, what if Nintendo's next console isn't even a Switch 2? And so for this video, I just wanted to kind of spitball ideas and talk about the future of the Nintendo Switch. And just as a warning, this video might be all over the place because I don't have any notes, I don't have a script for this. I just wanted to straight up talk with you guys about video games. So first off, let's talk about the actual name. Most people have just been calling it the Switch 2, which would make the most sense because a lot of people are thinking that it's just going to be the second generation of the Nintendo Switch. But I don't know, knowing Nintendo and knowing how they always try to be like different and do something wacky, I'm really unsure of whether or not they would just stick with Nintendo Switch 2. Like, that's obviously something that PlayStation does, and I guess that works for them. I mean, Nintendo could end up saying that their next console is the Nintendo Switch U, or maybe the Super Nintendo Switch. Or maybe they would even call it the Nintendo Switch 2, but then 2 is TOO. Like, that's definitely something only Nintendo would do. I'm also thinking about if they would just drop the Switch name. Like, maybe the next Nintendo console will be called the Nintendo something. I don't know, it's so hard because we're so used to just saying Nintendo Switch that it's hard to imagine anything else besides Switch after Nintendo. But knowing Nintendo, it seems very likely that they would want to do something drastically different from the Switch. And that kind of leads us into what the features are going to be with this next generation Nintendo console. I'm very curious to find out if this next console is even going to be a Nintendo Switch. Because if you look back at Nintendo's console history, at this point they've pretty much tried to do something different every single time. It's very rare that we see Nintendo just do a new version of their last console. I mean, the last time we saw them attempt to do that was with the Wii U, and look what happened. So my thought is that one of the features of this new console still might be a home console on the go, like the Nintendo Switch. But maybe that's not going to be its main gimmick. And right now, I honestly can't even predict what the next gimmick will be. I tried my hardest to just like come up with a bunch of random ideas and just silly things that only Nintendo would make. I came up with a built-in mini projector where maybe there's like some module on the top of the Switch that tilts outwards and you can just project your console wherever you go. Listen, I'm not Nintendo, I'm just coming up with random ideas. I've also actually seen a lot of concept art where people are thinking maybe they could make a dual screen version of the Switch, which, I mean, Nintendo is known for making dual screen devices. Maybe they could make their next console with a hinge where you have that top and bottom screen. Maybe that's possible, and there was a rumor recently saying that Nintendo is thinking of switching back to LCD screens for this next console. Maybe that is in order to offset the price of having two screens, I don't know. But basically, I think it's interesting to think that Nintendo could just completely ditch the whole Switch moniker with the next console. Once again, it still might be a feature of the console, but it's not going to be its main selling point feature. There have also been rumors about backwards compatibility, which at this point I think Nintendo just kind of needs to do. With how much they're putting into Nintendo Switch Online, like, I think it would be silly for them to build up this whole online service, you know, with all of the catalogs of games that they've included, and then with the next console to just say, okay, yeah, none of that is usable with this new console. And Nintendo has pretty much confirmed that they are going to bring over Nintendo accounts from the Nintendo Switch to their next generation console. So maybe that means your games will sync over to the new console. I could see them sticking with cartridges and making it so that Nintendo Switch cartridges can still fit in the cartridge slot of the next system, similar to what they did with the Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS, where DS games can fit in the 3DS, but 3DS games cannot fit in the DS. Maybe we'll see something like that with the next cartridges. Now, I also wanted to talk about some of the games that I think we can expect for this next generation console. So I pulled up Nintendo's latest financials, and I just listed their current top selling Switch games that I can see getting getting a sequel for the next generation console. First off, Mario Kart 9. I think it's a given that we'll be getting that for Nintendo's next console. Will it be a launch title or will it come out later? I'm not too sure, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe continues to just kill it with 55.46 million units sold. There's also Super Mario Odyssey 2, which has been like a rumored game for a really long time. Super Mario Odyssey on the Switch has sold 26.44 million units. So maybe we can finally see the long-rumored Super Mario Odyssey 2 on Nintendo's next console. A new Animal Crossing game, with Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Switch selling 42.79 million. I'm interested to see where Nintendo goes with the Animal Crossing series. Nowadays, I feel like there are so many games that have pretty much just taken the Animal Crossing formula, such as Disney Dreamlight Valley, or there are games that are substitute for Animal Crossing that have gotten really big, such as Stardew Valley. And with New Horizons having came out during the pandemic, I'm interested to see if Nintendo will ever be able to replicate that with future Animal Crossing games. And I would love to see Super Smash Bros. On Nintendo's next console. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has sold 31.77 million units. I don't expect a new Smash Bros. Game to come to Nintendo's next console. After Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, I honestly don't know where they can even take Smash Bros. And with Mr. Sakurai now being a professional YouTuber, I imagine he's probably really busy to make a new Smash Bros. So I think even a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Deluxe for Nintendo's next console could be really cool as well, where it's similar to what they did with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. They bundle in all of the DLC, maybe they add some new maps or like add a new game mode or something, and then that can just be our Smash Bros. Game for Nintendo's next console. So those are some of the top selling Switch games that Nintendo recently listed in their financials that I could see as totally possible coming to their next console. So just to wrap things up here, I think it's a very just fun and exciting time where we're getting more rumors and speculation about what Nintendo is going to do next. Nintendo's like Bam Margera, what will he do next?
What will he do next? Whatever the I want.
So I think it's really interesting to think about these kinds of things. Nintendo is now known for their wacky ideas, not really for the power of their consoles or anything. A lot of times people don't even consider Nintendo to be a part of the current console wars. Like they're just off doing their own thing. So maybe with this new console, it could just be something completely different that we're not expecting. And overall, I'm honestly excited. I'm excited whether we get a Nintendo Switch 2 or something brand new. Nintendo is the wild card that will do things that nobody expects. So we shall see what they come up with for their next console.
It feels like years since rumors started going around about a new upgraded Switch model called the Switch Pro. It's no secret that the Switch isn't really on the same level as the big boys, the PlayStation and the Xbox. If you look at pretty much any multi-platform game, the Switch version usually sticks out like a sore thumb. So I think many people have been clamoring for a new up-to-date Switch model. And for a while there, it was looking pretty positive that we would be getting a new Switch model soon. Only for Nintendo to crush all of our hopes and dreams by saying that there is no new Switch model planned for 2021.
Since Nintendo won't give it to us, here's my top 5 wish list for the Switch Pro.
The first thing I would want to see from a Switch Pro is a larger and higher quality display. That's not to say that I want the Switch to be larger. In fact, it would probably be best if they kept the Switch Pro the same dimensions as the current Switch, but they just need to get rid of these ugly things. Imagine if they kept the Switch Pro the same size, but just shrunk down the bezels so that the screen covers more of the front of the device. I think it could make a huge difference. Also, the 720p screen on the Switch isn't the worst sin ever, but a 1080p upgrade would be nice to see on the Switch Pro. I mean, when it comes down to it, the current screen on the Switch works fine. If I'm stuck in a spot where I can't dock my Switch, sure, it works. But I would love to see the Switch Pro have a screen that is even clearer and better than the current one. The second thing on my Switch Pro wishlist is more powerful internals. As I mentioned earlier, the Switch can't really compare to the PlayStation and Xbox in terms of power, so it would only make sense for the Switch Pro to have some upgraded internals. And I know many people have been pointing towards the Switch Pro being capable of 4K, but I would honestly just be happy with 1080p at a higher and consistent frame rate and better performance when docked. Along with graphics and performance, I would also love to see the Switch Pro have an even better battery life. Granted, they did upgrade the Switch's battery life with the Switch V2 from between 2.5 to 6.5 hours to 4.5 and 9 hours. But if they can give the battery life even more of a push, that would be really great. The next thing on my Switch Pro wishlist is better airflow. I don't know if it's only me, but I noticed that my Switch can become a heater when I'm playing some intense games. The game that Nintendo likes to point to for performance tests is Breath of the Wild, which is a massive game, so it makes sense that it would start to push the limits of the Switch. But I also noticed that even if I'm playing some Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, my Switch will start to heat up a bit. So I would love to see some improved airflow on the Switch Pro. Maybe that means more or larger air vents, just as long as it's still quiet and doesn't make you look sus while playing your Switch on an airplane. And third-party companies are already making accessories that supposedly fix the airflow of the Switch. It would just be nice to see it built into the Switch Pro. The fourth thing I would want to see from a Switch Pro is an improved dock. The Nintendo Switch dock has its shortcomings, from getting hot and causing the Switch to bend, to scratching the Switch's screen. Obviously, these are silly problems that need to be addressed on the next Switch, but also I feel like the Switch dock isn't the most substantial piece of tech ever. It has a somewhat cheap plastic feeling to it, like it doesn't even really feel like it has any technology built into it. It just kind of feels like a slab of plastic. And I mean, I guess it's nice because it makes it really lightweight and portable, but I would love to see a dock that gives off that powerful feeling of blasting the image onto the TV. Also, a more hefty dock would allow them to include more processing power when playing in docked mode. So a more substantial dock would be really nice. And by far, what I want most from a Switch Pro are upgraded Joy-Con. On paper, the Joy-Con are some of the most unique and useful controllers ever made. They pack in lots of cool features like motion control, they let you play your Switch in handheld mode or wirelessly, and they can even double as two separate controllers. However, in actual use, the Joy-Con have their shortcomings. And worst of all, many Joy-Con just don't work. The Joy-Con drift, as people call it, has been a pretty widespread issue. Personally, I don't think I experienced the Joy-Con drift the same way that other people have. The issue I've always had with Joy-Con is the unstable Bluetooth connection. Ever since I got my Switch in 2017, my Joy-Con would constantly stop recognizing inputs, or they would disconnect completely. It was to the point that I had to call Nintendo and send in my Switch to be fixed. But when I got it back, still the same problem. It turns out that the Bluetooth signal in the Joy-Con just can't handle being too far from the Switch. And depending on how you grip the Joy-Con, it can actually make the connection even worse. Similar to how the iPhone 4 suffered cell service issues if you held the bottom right corner. There are videos on YouTube showing how to mod the Joy-Con's Bluetooth yourself, but I can barely trust myself with building a Lego set. How do you expect me to tear apart a Joy-Con? So with the Switch Pro, I would love to see some better Joy-Con as well, maybe called Joy-Con Pros. I imagine that these would be more substantial feeling Joy-Con that allow for customization, similar to the Xbox Elite controller. They could have updated internals, such as a better Bluetooth signal, and they could use the same rail system as the original Joy-Con, so that they're still compatible with the original Switch as well as all of the Joy-Con accessories. I don't think Nintendo's gonna pump out a Switch 2 anytime soon. I think we're at the point of the Game Boy to the Game Boy Color, or like the 3DS to the new 3DS. We won't be seeing a brand new console, it's probably going to be more of like a half generation upgrade. It's interesting because I feel like most people have accepted the fact that Nintendo isn't really a part of the console wars the same way that PlayStation and Xbox are. Nintendo is that one kid that runs off into the flowers while everyone else is playing soccer. They're not really worried about being the most powerful console ever, they're just kind of in a league of their own. But I do think with these improvements, it'll at least give us Nintendo fans something closer to what the competition is offering. So today we are going to talk about some of the Nintendo Switch's missing features that I think we need. First off, I think it's crazy that we are more than 6 years into the life of the Switch, and we still don't have a proper internet browser. I think the Nintendo Switch is long overdue for an internet browser. And I know that there are currently some unofficial ways to access the internet on your Nintendo Switch, but I'm talking about just a standalone internet browser. I mean, I guess Nintendo didn't want to make the mistake of the Wii U, where that console felt really bloated with a bunch of unnecessary features. The Nintendo Switch feels like the complete opposite of the Wii U, in that it is very much focused on just being a video game system. No media, no entertainment, just video games. And I think the Nintendo Switch does that very well just because of how quickly and easily you can get across the Switch's operating system. But I mean, just an internet browser I feel like isn't going to hurt the Switch. I feel like an internet browser directly on the Switch could be super helpful if you're looking up tips for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. They could even do what they did with Earthbound on the Wii U and publish a PDF online which you can access through the internet browser for pretty much any of their games. And also it would be perfect since the Switch is a home console and a handheld. You could use your Nintendo Switch in handheld mode to access the internet anywhere in your house. I feel like the possibilities would be endless if there was a proper internet browser on the Nintendo Switch.
Next up, the second missing feature that I think we desperately need for the Nintendo Switch is more themes.
I am absolutely shocked that Nintendo has not introduced more themes for the Nintendo Switch and found a way to monetize them. I mean, I feel like Nintendo would monetize the sun if they could. The Nintendo 3DS offered a theme shop where you could spend a couple of dollars and get a brand new custom theme for your Nintendo 3DS. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Nintendo would introduce so many cool themes, oftentimes related to the latest game that was out, and it was just really fun to deck out your 3DS in all kinds of different ways. It would be such an easy way for Nintendo to get people to spend a couple of bucks on their Switch. And the fact that there's an entire dedicated themes menu in the settings, it feels like Nintendo has been planning to introduce more themes. Because you open up the themes menu and it's literally just dark or light. What a waste of a menu. I would just absolutely love to give my Nintendo Switch home screen some kind of character. There are countless people online making their own custom concept art of what a Nintendo Switch theme could look like. So please Nintendo, I am begging to give you my money for new themes on the Nintendo Switch.
The third missing feature that I think would be really cool if it was brought to the Nintendo Switch is some kind of achievement system.
I feel like achievements first became a very big deal with the Xbox 360. That was really fun to be playing your favorite games and have these little challenges that you can try to complete, and each time you would get an achievement, it would be like checking off an item on your checklist. There's something just really fun and really satisfying about that. Once again, I am honestly shocked to see that Nintendo has not added an achievement system yet. Nintendo is known as like the fun company that tries to gamify everything. Like, oh, you want Nintendo to do VR? Well, here's a cardboard minigame VR. I think Nintendo could definitely find a way to sort of gamify and just make fun achievements for Nintendo Switch games. They've already kind of dipped their toes in this with the Nintendo Switch Online service. If you play a certain game in the Nintendo Switch Online catalog, you'll get some My Nintendo Platinum points. And hey, that is a great start for what could be a really cool achievement system. Imagine unlocking a bunch of achievements in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and as you do, you get like 5 or 10 platinum coins for your My Nintendo account. That would be a sick way for Nintendo to introduce some kind of an achievement system. So overall, I think introducing achievements to the Nintendo Switch, it could be a really fun thing to incentivize players to continue playing their Nintendo Switch games. Maybe if there was an achievement system, I wouldn't have given up on Mario Strikers Battle League after a week.
And finally, I saved the best for last. The fourth missing feature that I think the Nintendo Switch desperately needs is an updated eShop experience.
Holy cannoli, I think we can all agree that using the eShop on the Nintendo Switch is absolutely dreadful. I don't know for sure if this is just a me problem, but I have heard from other people online that their eShop experience is about as bad as mine. The eShop is an absolute chore to even just try to explore. Trying to navigate the eShop is just one of the worst experiences in my life. It just feels incredibly buggy and slow. There's a huge delay from when you press the button on your controller to when it actually loads up on the eShop. It's just one of the saddest experiences I've ever seen for an online store. With both the Wii shop and the Wii U eShop, at least they were like kind of fun experiences that it definitely had Nintendo written all over it and how they executed it. But hey, you know, there was music in the background, like for the most part, it was just a smooth experience, even with some of Nintendo's weird little quirks. At the very least, I just wish I could navigate the Nintendo Switch eShop without it feeling like the console is having an aneurysm. Even with the Nintendo Switch Online app on the Switch, I feel like that must run a similar way as the eShop because that is also incredibly just jittery and laggy and slow. So if they could just make the eShop a smoother and fun experience, I feel like people would be more inclined to actually look through the eShop, which would then possibly cause people to buy more games, which gets Daddy Nintendo more money. So those were some of the Nintendo Switch's missing features that I think we really need. Once again, the Nintendo Switch does offer a very bare bones and straight to the point type of operating system, but if just a few more features were added to the Nintendo Switch, I think it would make a really great experience. Well, today we're going to be talking about some of the collection games that I would love to see Nintendo bring to the Switch. First off, a collection that I think would be perfect for Nintendo Switch is the Mario and Luigi collection. Mario and Luigi was a video game series of RPGs made specifically for Nintendo handhelds. It started out with Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga on the Game Boy Advance in 2003, and technically ended with Paper Jam on the Nintendo 3DS in 2015, as well as remakes of the first and third game, which we don't really talk about anymore. Anyway, I think a collection of the first 3 Mario and Luigi games, Superstar Saga, Partners in Time, and Bowser's Inside Story would make for a really great collection on the Switch. I think this would be the definitive trilogy of Mario and Luigi games that most people would want. Also, Dream Team relied heavily on the dual screen function on the 3DS, with players controlling Luigi on the bottom screen and affecting the gameplay on the top screen, which I think would be too much to try to bring over to the Switch. Meanwhile, with the first 3 games, Superstar Saga was a Game Boy Advance game, so they don't even have to worry about the dual screen functions. And in general, I think Partners in Time and Bowser's Inside Story, they didn't rely as heavily on the dual screens as maybe Dream Team did. So I think some way, somehow, Nintendo can figure out a way to either incorporate a dual screen type of experience, or maybe just eliminate the dual screens altogether. And hey, like we mentioned earlier, they technically did already remake 2 of these 3 games, Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story, so maybe they could even just port those versions onto the Switch, and at least all that there is to update is Partners in Time. Plus, since people don't seem to be happy with the current state of the Paper Mario RPGs, personally I thought the Origami King was actually okay, but to each their own. At least if they bring over the Mario and Luigi series, the Super Mario Bros fans and the RPG fans can have a collection of classic games to play that we already know are quality games. And even though the developer of the Mario and Luigi games, Alpha Dream, has gone out of business, Nintendo still does own the rights to Mario and Luigi, so hey, I still think it would be totally possible. Next up, let's move on to everybody's favorite ape. I would love to see the Donkey Kong Country collection. The Donkey Kong Country series is a very interesting series for me personally. I was always more of a fan of just the classic 2D Mario games, but Donkey Kong Country, while still being a 2D side-scroller, I think offered so many more complex ideas and oftentimes would make for a more difficult game. So I guess in some ways the Donkey Kong Country series is like the grown-up version of the 2D Mario games. Anyway, back in 2018, Nintendo actually brought over a Donkey Kong Country game to the Switch, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which was originally released on the Wii U. And hey, at least that gives us hope that Nintendo isn't completely ruling out Donkey Kong Country as a series, which means that I think it would be totally cool if Nintendo brought over the 3 classic Donkey Kong Country games, Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest, and Donkey Kong Country 3 Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. I think it would be really cool if Nintendo remade these old Donkey Kong Country games and brought them to the Switch with graphics more like Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii. I mean, it would be awesome if they could do Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze style graphics, but honestly, I'll just take what we can get. Since these are 3 older Super Nintendo games that, for the most part, part. I feel like especially with 2 and 3, they don't really get talked about as much as, say, Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo. By giving them a facelift and bringing them over to the Switch, it would introduce these games to a whole new generation of gamers. And plus, with these games supporting 2-player co-op, it could make for a perfect game in which each player uses a single Joy-Con. And as a bonus, I mean, there are 3 classic Donkey Kong Country games, a perfect number of games to be included in one of these collection games.
And finally, since there have been rumors about this Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD collection coming out for Nintendo Switch, I thought it would be a really cool idea to see the Legend of Zelda 2D collection, or alternatively, the Legend of Zelda All-Stars.
The Zelda series is in a very interesting spot right now, where the 3D Zeldas have pretty much completely taken over the 2D ones. Obviously, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have been massive hits on the Nintendo Switch, but besides that, we haven't really gotten our fill of 2D Zelda games in a hot minute. We had the Link's Awakening remake a few years ago, and that's it. Not to undermine Link's Awakening, because I absolutely love the style of that game, but frankly, we have 3 mainline 3D Zelda games on the Switch, and only 1 2D mainline Zelda game on the Switch. And those ratios get even worse if you include the Hyrule Warriors games. And I don't know, I'm just completely speculating here, like I'm not a developer by any means, but ideally, some of these 2D Zelda games are old enough to where I feel like remaking them and putting them into a collection would honestly be simple enough where it's like, why not do it? But once again, that's just coming from me, some random guy sitting on the couch. Anyway, the 3 2D Zelda games that I picked out for this collection are The Legend of Zelda Nintendo Entertainment System, The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past from the Super Nintendo, and The Legend of Zelda A Link Between Worlds from the Nintendo 3DS. And I mean, A Link Between Worlds is kinda iffy just because we now know that they are releasing standalone 3DS games with Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon coming out next year. But anyway, I think it would be great for Nintendo to remake the original The Legend of Zelda game. With how old that game is and how sort of cryptic it is looking back at it now, I would absolutely love to see a reimagined Legend of Zelda game where it sort of lives up to today's standards and it doesn't really feel like an NES game where you have to constantly check manuals or look up walkthroughs and whatnot. And as a newer The Legend of Zelda fan, I have been absolutely terrified to ever go back to any of the original NES Zelda games. They just seem like it's gonna be ridiculously difficult to try to play blindly by myself. Then with A Link to the Past, I think that's just a beloved 2D Zelda game. In my opinion, I think A Link to the Past really laid the groundwork for all future Zelda games. I just really love how the world of Hyrule was laid out in A Link to the Past. It was super interesting to explore Hyrule in a 2D environment, especially since I started with the 3D ones. And it's just a really great game. I think the 2D Zelda games in general offer a completely different experience of Zelda gameplay than the 3D games. And with A Link Between Worlds, once again very similarly to A Link to the Past, that's just a very different and still incredibly fun way to experience The Legend of Zelda. When I played through A Link Between Worlds after A Link to the Past, it felt incredibly familiar while still incorporating a bunch of fresh new gameplay mechanics. And if I'm not mistaken, for the most part, A Link Between Worlds didn't even rely too heavily on the bottom screen. I believe most of the bottom screen was just used for inventory management, which I mean nowadays we are just used to opening menus to manage our inventories and weapons and whatnot. So I think these 3 The Legend of Zelda games would make for an incredible collection of 2D games that really complements the 3D Zelda games that we already have on the Switch.
So those were 3 collection games that I would absolutely love to see Nintendo make for the Switch. I think collection games are really cool because they allow these video game developers to continue making their games relevant and not letting the games die off with old generations. It also introduces these classic games to newer generations who may have not played them before.
Mario Kart 8!
Mario Kart 8, one of the saving graces on Nintendo's worst-selling console, the Wii U. This is a really great Mario Kart game, dare I say, even the best Mario Kart game. Once Nintendo decided to ditch the Wii U in favor of their next console, the Switch, we finally saw our first glimpse of a brand new Mario Kart game. Could this be Mario Kart 9? Nope, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Well, that makes sense. Not too many people got to play Mario Kart 8 because you were more likely to find hidden treasure than a Wii U in somebody's home. so at least this gives people a chance to play the game if they missed it. However, Mario's 35th anniversary came around and people started speculating about a Mario Kart 9. Then, during the Mario 35th anniversary Nintendo Direct, we see a glimpse of Mario Kart. Mario Kart 9? This is Mario Kart 9. No. Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. What is up, guys? My name is Chase, and it has been 6 years since Mario Kart 8 first came out. I don't count Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as a new Mario Kart game just because it's basically just Mario Kart 8 with the 2 DLC packs, along with some new elements that might as well have just been DLC. So today I'm going to be building my very own Mario Kart 9. The GameCube was king of cutscenes in Nintendo games. Between the cutscenes in Super Mario Sunshine and the Emmy Award-winning opening cinematic of Mario Power Tennis, a game that has no business even having a cutscene in the first place, the GameCube had some magical moments in Nintendo games that I think are pretty iconic. While Mario Kart Double Dash didn't have the same major cutscenes as some of the other games, it still had little cutscenes in the opening of the game as well as after each cup. I would love to see some kind of fleshed out story mode similar to what they did in Mario Tennis Aces, or at the very least bring back the cutscenes after each cup. All we got in Mario Kart 8 was like a virtual trophy. Here's a hot take. I don't mind the blue shell. Sure, getting hit by one feels like somebody waiting to trip you at the end of a triathlon, but I really like that the blue shell adds some chaos as well as some balance whenever you play with someone who has no life. What I think can be improved in Mario Kart 9 is just the overall collection of items. In my opinion, Mario Kart Wii has some of the best items throughout the series. I think the POW block and the lightning cloud added some frustrating yet fun strategy. But ever since Mario Kart 7, it felt like Nintendo started to hold back on items. Most of the items they included were more or less just Mario power-ups. Also, the Crazy 7 and the Crazy 8 felt a bit too annoying for me. Whenever I get those items, I try to use everything as quickly as possible so that no one runs into my Bob-omb and murders me. For Mario Kart 9, I would hope that Nintendo would introduce more quirky items. Of course, they can't get rid of the classics like the mushrooms or the shells and the star, but maybe bring in more elements from Mario games outside of the traditional power-ups. With Mario Kart 8, we got a bunch of new courses thanks to the DLC. They even included courses from other IP being Animal Crossing, Zelda, and F-Zero. But the last new Mario Kart courses we got were back in 2015. I'm not counting the battle stages, I'm talking like just regular, racing Mario Kart courses. And since then, there have been so many new Nintendo games. Breath of the Wild, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and of course, Super Mario Odyssey. Not to mention the games they still haven't included, like Mario Galaxy. How has there not been a true Mario Galaxy course in Mario Kart yet? And since they did bring other characters, like Link, the Animal Crossing villager, and the Inklings, I also think it might be cool to include Kirby in the mix. Obviously, I don't think Mario Kart should become like the next Smash, but just look at Kirby, he is made to be in Mario Kart. And you could have some kind of Kirby-themed course, it would be perfect. As far as retro courses go, I would just like to see more, that's all I ask. Ever since Nintendo took the plunge into HD with Mario Kart 8, it was always magical to see all of the old courses reimagined in HD. So I would be really happy to see more classic Mario Kart courses brought to HD. Personally, I would love to see HD versions of Mushroom Gorge, Maple Treeway, and DK Mountain. Mario Kart Tour was Nintendo's long-awaited Mario Kart app on mobile. Personally, I think this might be my least favorite Mario Kart experience, but I'll talk about that in another video. That's not to say that there are some elements from Mario Kart Tour that I think could or should be brought over to Mario Kart 9. For example, even just the character selection. Captain Toad and his little minecart are the perfect character-cart combo, which I'm surprised was not included in the Mario Kart DLC. While I wasn't a huge fan of Mario Kart Tour, I hope that Nintendo learns what works from the app and brings it over to Mario Kart 9. With every Mario Kart game, Nintendo introduces some kind of new mechanic. Mario Kart Double Dash famously had the two-person carts, Mario Kart Wii introduced bikes, Mario Kart 7 introduced gliding as well as underwater driving, and Mario Kart 8 had you defying gravity. What could be the next big thing in Mario Kart 9? At this point, we can pretty much trust Nintendo with bringing fun new mechanics into their games. They've proven to us time and time again that they have some of the most out-of-the-box ideas. And sure, sometimes they make mistakes like the battle mode in Mario Kart 8, but even with their flaws, Nintendo puts love and care into their big franchises, which makes it a fun time for everyone. Exploding carts would be cool though. In 2017, Nintendo did something magical. They made a Mario game. A good one. Super Mario Odyssey may just be my favorite Mario game ever. The controls, the levels, the music, nearly everything about this game blows me away. And from what I've seen, other people feel this way too. A rumor that has been circulating for quite a while now has been a Super Mario Odyssey 2, which is going to be what we're focusing on today. Just as a disclaimer, it is completely possible that we don't even get a Super Mario Odyssey 2. I mean, look what happened when everyone thought we were gonna get a Super Mario Galaxy 3. But just for the fun of this video, let's assume that the next Mario game we are getting is Super Mario Odyssey 2. So here's my wish list for a new Super Mario Odyssey. Number 1 on my wish list would be more cities. This might be my own personal bias, but I thought New Donk City was just the most interesting environment we've ever seen Mario in. Something about seeing Mario, you know, a character who we have grown up to be this like fictional, I'd say like almost a superhero. Move over Captain America. Seeing him walk around a city that is clearly based off of New York City. At first, I was really like grossed out by it, but actually playing it, it's so cool to see Mario walking, you know, alongside real people and in these real life scenarios. So I think it would be really cool if in the next Super Mario Odyssey we get just more of that. I don't know, what's a cool city we can see Mario in? Actually, that would be really cool. Imagine like a Los Angeles, you know, you can run by the Hollywood sign, except maybe it's not the Hollywood sign because then they would need the rights to the Hollywood sign. I'm just spitballing, but Nintendo, if you want to hit me up, feel free to. So that's one thing I think would be really cool, just like more cities. Number 2 on my Super Mario Odyssey 2 wish list is power-ups. So something interesting about Super Mario Odyssey is that Cappy basically replaces the classic power-up that we're all used to in Mario games. Rather than getting a fire flower to throw fireballs, you would throw Cappy at a fire bro, or even just become a fireball yourself. And don't get me wrong, I love Cappy as a mechanic, but there's something just so classic about hitting a question mark block and getting like a random power-up. Sort of in the same vein as Super Mario 3D World, nobody was expecting a cat suit power-up. Like that was just like, okay, now we have a cat power-up. Like I think it would be funny to see something like that in Mario Odyssey 2. Just the weirdest like power-ups that you can think of. And number 3 on my wish list for Super Mario Odyssey 2 is multiplayer or co-op. So Super Mario Odyssey did the interesting thing where they had like 1.5 players. Similar to how in Mario Galaxy, one player could play as Mario and then one can collect star bits. In Mario Odyssey, one player controls Mario and one player controls Cappy. I don't know, why not? Let's just throw in full-on multiplayer. I mean, they did it with 3D Land and 3D World. Why the heck not? Mario Odyssey 1 is single player, Mario Odyssey 2, let's bring in more people. Mario with Cappy and then Luigi has his own, like, Cappy, I guess. I think that could be fun, I don't know. You never know until you try, right, Nintendo? No, but I feel like including some kind of co-op in Mario Odyssey might sort of unlock it for a whole new player base. But I think especially for like kids and stuff, being able to have this Mario game that you can play alongside your family or friends, I don't know, I think that could be fun. And with that, those are the 3 things on my wish list for Super Mario Odyssey 2. Once again, it'll be really funny if I made this whole list and there is no such thing as Super Mario Odyssey 2. Let me know in the comments what you guys would want to see in a Super Mario Odyssey 2. Feel free to check out more of my Mario videos below. For now, thank you for watching. My name is Chase and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.